Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. And finally, drum roll please, welcome to part 4 of my 2,000 subscriber Q&A. Yes, literally almost a month ago, this channel surpassed 2,000 subscribers, and we're still doing the 2,000 subscriber Q&A. So I do apologize about that. That was probably poor planning on my end. I didn't mean to drag it out this long. It just happened because I like to release original content in between these Q&As to kind of break it up. I will tell you though, if I did not answer your question in this finale of this Q&A series, and I didn't answer your question in the other 3 parts of this series that premiered over the last few weeks on this channel, please remind me in the comment section below. And if, big if, because there are no guarantees in life, if this channel does get to 2,500 subscribers, I promise you I will answer your questions first. Again, I can't stress this enough. I consider these Q&As to be of utmost importance on a channel like this. It allows me to directly engage with my viewers, my subscribers, and it allows you to ask me questions on topics in and out of the antiques and collectibles trade. So we're gonna get right into this because we got a lot of ground to cover. First question, Sean, what do you think about sports trading cards and collectible vinyl records? I'm gonna answer these individually, and just to give you a heads up, there are gonna be more videos coming on this channel that deal with collectible vinyl records and also sports trading cards. I just haven't had enough time to devote to finishing up those videos, but those are 2 markets that I understand I have not devoted a lot of time to as of yet on this channel, because every time I go to film one of those videos, I get pulled into another direction where I have to do a video on Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or comic books or coins or vintage video games or graded video games and the like. So those videos are coming. Just remain patient with me, guys. I am doing the best I can with all I have to do in a day. On sports trading cards, if we're talking about the market prior to the year 1980, I consider that very established. That's equivalent to vintage comic books. So those of you that are going out onto the market trying to get a graded Mickey Mantle card, or if you're lucky enough to be able to afford a vintage or antique Honus Wagner card that's graded, that market is very stable. It's a little bit speculative right now because there's a lot of people that are coming into that market that look at it with investment potential, much like vintage comic books. So prices have risen exorbitantly in the past few years, just like they have with vintage comic books. That being said, where it gets a little bit murky is with the modern era sports card collectibles. I was reading an article where a collector bought a box of 2020 Bauman sports cards, and he ended up pulling a $30,000 to $40,000 card from that box. Now, one of the things that I don't like about mass-produced modern era collectibles, whether we're talking about Wizards, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, baseball cards, sports cards, Funko Pops, whatever it is, there's too much mass-produced scarcity. And that's a prime example of it. Now, I think in this day and age, one thing that the sports card companies have going for them is a lot of them were the same companies that were around, not all of them, but some of those companies were around back during the 80s speculative sports card bubble. So I think a lot of them learned their lesson from what happened back in the late 1980s when the sports card market at that particular time collapsed. So I don't think it's as bad as it was back then. It just seems to be more geared towards one-of-a-kind items that are being put into boxes, in the packs, that people are able to get. And when they do get, it's almost like hitting the lottery because they can send that item to get graded. It's going to probably grade very high. They can flip it on the market for tens of thousands of dollars. It's almost akin to legalized gambling. And that's really what I don't like about the antiques and collectibles trade for a lot of these mass-produced products at present time, because I think it kind of ruins the true value of the items overall. I don't think an item like that you pull from a pack in the year 2020, send off to be graded and flip for $30,000 to $40,000 in the secondary market is a good long-term investment. That's just my opinion. That's just my assessment. If you're gonna spend $30,000 to $40,000, go after a vintage product where you can analyze the market. You can literally see the price appreciation, how that market did on the overall secondary market over the last 10, 20, 30 years. There's just a better chance of turning a profit on a vintage item in that sense than a modern era mass-produced product. So I hope that answers your question. So again, just to sum up that market, pre-1980, that's the sweet spot for vintage trading cards. If you want to go after a Mickey Mantle rookie, any of those cards in that realm, you're doing pretty fine as long as you understand the market, you understand the risks, and you're not doing anything too esoteric. Now, when we get into the modern era market, that's where it's speculative, in my opinion. I know right now there's a lot of people paying a premium for basketball cards, rookie cards, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, all that. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I just think that there should be caution used on a lot of those products as well. You got to be very careful because a lot of those items were scarce. Don't get me wrong. In the 1980s, most manufacturers focused on baseball cards. They weren't really making a lot of football cards and basketball cards because the whole market was geared towards baseball cards at that particular time. So I understand that those items can have true organic collectability. It's just I would take a wait and see attitude toward that segment of the market if I was going to invest a substantial amount. Just my opinion. As for collectible vinyl records, this is where it gets a little bit complex. There's two different aspects of the collectible vinyl record market today. Let me use this as an example. Back in the early 1990s, I was in junior high school, getting ready to go to high school because I graduated in 1995. This was also at the time that I was learning the antiques trade, the antiques and collectibles trade. And some of my favorite bands were 9 Inch Nails, still is, love Trent Reznor, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. I really like the grunge music. On the other side of the spectrum, I honestly also like new age music. I'm a huge fan of Yanni, Enya, any type of music that has that unique sound and has a lot of meaning or hidden meaning to the songs that those artists produce. Well, if you're going to buy the first release of Pearl Jam's 10, which is their very first debut album, for those of you unaware of Pearl Jam. If you're going to buy that in vinyl format, you're going to have to go back and buy the 1993, 1992 premiere of that album in its original first pressing form if you want something that's collectible and has value long term. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, Sean, Pearl Jam and a lot of these record companies, a lot of these other musicians, they're releasing modern era remastered vinyl records of their classic music, and they're doing it with limited runs, or they're making 180-gram colored records with alternate artwork. All that stuff, guys, is mass-produced scarcity. Most of those records being produced for the collectible side of the record market today are simply digital remasters of the CD versions that came out years ago. Now, that's not 100% true for all of these companies producing these items. But overall, when you're buying that particular item, you're losing the organic collectability of the original analog record that was produced by the artist back in, if we use Pearl Jam as an example, back in the 1990s when the chosen format was compact disc. So ironically, there weren't too many first pressings of Pearl Jam's 10 sold back then on vinyl format because most people that were buying it either on CD, first and foremost, and if they didn't get it on CD, they bought it on cassette. Vinyl was dead last because the market just wasn't there at that time. It was considered a dying format. Well, today, a lot of these manufacturers, they're coming into the fold and they're saying, you know what? We can re-release this album and we could charge a premium for it. And all we got to do is tell the people out there that it's being released on Record Store Day, or it's in limited quantities, or it's on a 180-gram green-colored vinyl disc for people to buy and collect and put in their collections. Well, that's mass-produced scarcity. Now, I know people that make a lot of money going to Record Store Day. They buy up these items and they flip them on the secondary market. That's different. What I mean is the person that's buying these for long-term investment is better off going after the original first pressings. I'm a huge fan of 9 Inch Nails. You guys know that about me. I like Pretty Hate Machine, Broken, Downward Spiral, The Fragile, Year Zero, of course. That being said, if you go to 9 Inch Nails' website, they sell a lot of limited remastered editions of those albums. I have several in my collection, and I open them up and play them. Reason being, they're not going to be valuable long term. Somebody who wants an original pressing of Pretty Hate Machine is going to have to go to a site like Discogs and try to find the original 1989, 1988 release of that album, the first pressing when it premiered. So you got to be very careful about that market. Again, there's a lot of people coming in thinking just because Taylor Swift or Judas Priest, depending on what genre of music you're into, is releasing their latest album on vinyl, it's automatically going to be collectible. Well, there's a lot of people that are buying recent releases on vinyl and they're keeping them sealed. So it's almost like what's happening with modern era video games right now. You can use that as a comparison. Like companies like Limited Run, don't get me wrong, I love Limited Run. I buy a lot of their products. You should buy their products if you're a fan of those games. However, for long-term investment, those items do not have, at present time, organic collectability because the manufacturer is just making them in a limited amount and they're selling them for a premium on the market, and the little Timmies are coming along, they're buying them up, and they're thinking, hey, if I keep this sealed on my shelf, it's going to become the next stadium events. Well, record collectors are no better at present time. They're doing the same thing with modern releases from Judas Priest, Taylor Swift, and the like. So just use caution and you'll be okay. If you use common sense and apply common sense to both those markets, you're going to be fine. Next question. Sean, I would argue any comic book that has been graded by a trusted third-party service is investment grade, as its grade and authenticity is third-party verified. Now, this isn't a question per se, but I do want to respond to this. And the way I'm going to respond to this is this person is confusing liquidity with investment grade. Let me use this as an example. Let's say that you want to buy an Amazing Spider-Man 300 in CGC 9.8 condition, and you already have that same comic book graded by CGC in 9.6 condition. So your plan is to sell your 9.6 copy of your Amazing Spider-Man 300 and then upgrade it, go to the marketplace with that money, pay a little bit more, and get a 9.8 condition copy. Now, for the record, I do not agree with long-term investing in a book like Amazing Spider-Man 300. All you got to do is log on to cgc.com, look up the population reports, and you'll see 10,000s of that particular issue has already been graded by CGC. Now, where am I going with this? Well, if you want that book in investment grade, you need it in 9.8 condition at least. You have to be on the top 15% of the condition spectrum for something to apply in and qualify for investment grade condition. So, if you're going to buy a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 300 and you want it in investment grade, it's got to be in CGC 9.8 condition. So now let's use this example with our imaginary friend who is going to sell his copy of Amazing Spider-Man in 9.6 condition and put that money towards a 9.8 copy. He goes on to eBay, he goes to Comic Link, and he puts that item up for a bid or buy it now price, and he's willing to sell it at the exact same price that the last four or the average of the last four prices of that particular book sold for. I guarantee you that book is going to sell fairly quickly if it's priced right. That's an example of liquidity in action. It doesn't mean that copy of Amazing Spider-Man 300 in 9.6 condition is investment grade. The fact that it's sold is because the buyer who clicked on the buy it now or bid it on the book, however the transaction went down, assuming the equilibrium price was met, the reason that buyer bought that book is because there's no disputing that grade. It is the first appearance of Venom, and it is in CGC 9.6 condition. What third-party grading does, I have said this again, third-party grading companies, the respectable third-party grading companies, are not scams. They bring liquidity and confidence to the market. What this person is doing in his statement that says, I would argue any comic book that has been graded by a trusted third-party service is investment grade, he is confusing liquidity and thinking it equates to investment grade or investment potential. That is completely false. Those two items are not equivalent. Let me use this as an example. I referenced this before. There was a YouTube channel where a person held up an 8.0 graded copy of Amazing Spider-Man 129, first appearance of the Punisher. That comic book is not rare by any stretch of the imagination. It is also not rare in 8.0 condition. If you log on to CGC, you look at the census, you're going to find in order for that book to be in investment grade condition, it really has to be 9.4, 9.6 condition grade or higher. So the person that had that book in 8.0 condition, he can list it at eBay, and as long as he meets the equilibrium price, meaning the price where that book is currently valued at, that book will sell. That doesn't mean it was an investment grade. That means that that book has liquidity because of the grade it carries and the fact that it is the first appearance of the Punisher. A lot of people want that book. You can try this experiment, if you don't believe me, with a rather common modern era book that you got graded that came back CGC 9.4, CGC 9.6. You list it on eBay. I guarantee you it may not sell if the standard is 9.8, even though that book is third-party graded. Liquidity is what this person is confusing in regards to investment grade. So I just wanted to clarify that because that question comes up a lot. You know, if you go to your local Target store, you pull off the shelf a copy of Luigi's Mansion 3, and you send it to Wada Games, and it comes back a 9.4, guarantee you list that on eBay. I don't care what you're listing it for. You're going to have a problem selling it unless if you're listing it less than $59.99, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to come and buy it, realizing that a regular copy is $60 at their local store. They'll buy it from you if it goes for less than $60, crack it open, rip it open, and play the damn thing. So you must understand the difference between liquidity, how third-party grading influences the market, and also the difference between liquidity and investment grade. Hope my examples helped. Next question. Sean, Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! All have this speculator appeal because they have a low cost to entry and in the very short term seem stable. I agree with the first part. They do have a low cost to entry. Anybody out there can quote unquote invest or speculate in modern era Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. You can even extend that to vintage cards. If you guys want to go gamble on 50 cent, $1 reserve list Magic the Gathering cards, knock yourself out. I wouldn't advise it because there's a reason why certain reserve list cards are selling for thousands of dollars and other reserve list cards, after 20 some years of the game being in existence, are selling for 50 cents, $1, $5 a piece. If you want to gamble, risk versus reward, from my assessment, the risk of buying into a 50 cent reserve list card is very high because most likely you're going to spend substantial amounts of money to acquire that card, and there's a reason why it sells for 50 cents. Now you can argue, well, Sean, if I spend $10,000 on a 50 cent card and it goes to $1, I just doubled my money. Beat that. Well, ironically, that's not likely to happen. More often than not, you're likely to just tie up capital with no return. And that's something that equates to a loss in regards to opportunity cost. If you don't know what opportunity cost is, please look it up. I've covered it extensively on this channel in depth as it applies to the financial markets and also alternate asset investing, which is really what the antiques and collectibles trade is at this particular point. Now, going into your next statement, and in the very short term seems stable, I would disagree with this, and let me state why. If we look at a box of Skyridge for Pokemon booster box, I think it came out, help me out here, guys, what was it, 2005, 2004, 2006, somewhere around there. It was not hoarded in mass. It is considered a quote-unquote scarce Pokemon product on the market today, especially a factory seal booster box. We used to be able to buy that box of cards literally 6 months, 8 months ago for $6,000, $8,000 a box. Today, I saw one sell at some point in the last couple of months for close to $20,000, $24,000. So you can't state that in the very short term, those items seem stable when an item like Skyridge, a booster box, went from $8,000 all the way up to $24,000. It's like, what's the equilibrium price of this item? How do you chart it? Do you take all the individual sales going back 8 months, a year, 2 years? How do you chart the value of this box? It is anything but stable. It's speculative. That's why all these unsophisticated investors, some prominent investors too, more on that in another video when we get into market manipulation and the like, and also a lot of unsophisticated speculators are coming into these markets because they like the roller coaster ride of being able to possibly buy one of these items for $1,000 or $500 or $10,000 and hope and pray that it goes up to $20,000 so they can either say to their friends, I bought that item for $10,000. It's now worth $20,000. Or they can flip it immediately and then get those capital gains as a result. So the market for a lot of these items is anything but stable. I would argue graded video games, vintage video games, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering are the least stable items in the short term right now. Now, if you want to talk long term, there is a way we can assess that market. I'm not going to get into it in this video. You then go on to ask, what type of low-cost items can we buy today that will have value in the future? I don't have a crystal ball. What I can tell you, though, is right now, much like Richard Garfield himself, somebody out there or a team of people out there or even a company out there that's already established is sitting in a garage, sitting in a boardroom, sitting in a conference room right now, and they are working on the next big thing, whether it's a piece of digital entertainment, whether it's a physical card game, whether it's a physical game or a physical toy. Eventually, that item will take the collectibles marketplace by storm, and it will become the next big speculative item. Now, whether it goes from speculative to established to mature, we don't know that yet because it hasn't been created. Magic the Gathering right now is a very speculative item. We have years to go before that market becomes established. Then, should it actually go from established to mature, there's no guarantees, it may not, it's going to change fundamentally again, that marketplace. So that's why a lot of people that come on this channel and argue with me about graded video games, vintage video games and the like, and they tell me, hey, Sean, that graded game that just sold for 10 grand, how do you know it's not going to go to $100,000? And I look at them and I go, the game you're referencing is Star Voyager by Acclaim for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. The person who bought that obviously is in crack, because I don't know anybody 10 to 20 years or 30 years from now is going to go, hey, I want my Star Voyager released by Acclaim for the Nintendo Entertainment System in factory sealed condition. You see what I mean when I spell out some of these markets, how stupid it sounds? Now, you can argue the opposite point. Well, Sean, 10, 20, 30 years out, some kid may want to very well buy the first appearance of a factory sealed copy of The Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda, to be fair, is a very popular franchise. It's one of the most beloved Nintendo franchises, let's be honest. So you are correct. You can take the alternate view. But some of the prices that are being paid right now are unrealistic, guys. That's why I do a lot of these videos where I try to compare and contrast different markets. I try to tell you guys that paying $9,000 for an amazing Spider-Man game that came out in 1982 for the Atari 2600, of which there is well-known multiple factory sealed cases of that game in existence. That's why the price went from $9,000 all the way down to several thousand to this day and age, even in 9.8 condition. You gotta believe me. You have to analyze these markets properly. It's risk versus reward. So I hope that helps. I know I probably didn't surprise you with my answer or give you a great answer to be said. But I will say this, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you right now what's going to be coming up the pike that you can invest in that's going to be the next big thing, and it's going to be guaranteed. Everybody's asking me about Nintendo Amiibos. The market for Nintendo Amiibos is extremely speculative right now. Please don't fall into the trap and think, well, Sean, this is a first print Amiibo, therefore it's always going to have value. The market's not materialized in that manner at present time, and chances are we won't know that for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Me, I'm 43. I'm not really going to hold my Amiibo collection that I have upstairs till the age of 63 and hope I cash out ahead of the game, if you see what I'm saying. And that brings me to another point I really want to quick make, guys. You know, when you watch this channel, you have to understand that I am 43 years of age. I'm not 23. I'm not 63. I'm right in the middle. A lot of my subscriber base, I can tell you this firsthand when I analyze the demographics, are in their 30s and 40s, with some in their 20s and some in their 50s and 60s. But usually, I tend to skew right in the late 20, late 30-year-olds tend to gravitate towards this channel. Now, why is this important? Because I'm telling you, as somebody who has been in the antiques and collectibles trade, as a collector, speculator, investor, consultant, published author, and now unlikely YouTuber, I'm going to tell you this firsthand. How you analyze these markets and in comparison to your own life that's going to change. What I mean by that is if you're in your 20s, if you're in your late 20s and you're really into vintage video games, you're into Nintendo Amiibo, you're into some of these other products, whether it's Pokemon or Magic, there is a chance that as you progress, as you possibly mature, as you get established in your career, you may lose interest in those items. So if you are investing in those items, be cognizant that if you do start to lose interest in those items, it's going to be up to you to make the decision whether you cash out and possibly take a loss or a gain at that particular time, or whether you sell the items and go into another market that you're more interested in. I use this as a prime example because people come on this channel, and this is going to tie into my next question, I promise you. People come on this channel and they tell me, Sean, nobody my age is collecting coins. Nobody my age is collecting currency. Do you know what age I got into high-end currency? I was already well into my 30s. So the people that are gravitating towards more mature markets are usually older in age than a lot of these younger people that are getting into Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, video games, vintage toys, comic books, other speculative items. Now, it's true, I'm also interested in all those items, but ultimately, I prefer to invest in markets that are more mature because as I get older, I don't want to go through having to sell an entire room of video games in my 60s on eBay. It's just not something that appeals to me because I've been selling on eBay now for how many decades? I pretty much know how much work is involved. I know the risk. I know the reward. So at my age, I'm glad that a lot of the items that I collect, well, here's a $5,000 coin. If I want to sell that coin, I can consign it to Heritage Auctions, and pretty much they do all the work for me. I can negotiate a fair sales agreement with them, and they cut me a check. I'm happy with that at my age. So you got to understand, a lot of these markets are also predetermined by both your passion and how old you are, because the interests that you have now are going to change, just like relationships that you have now. I guarantee you, not everybody that is in your life right now, whether as a significant other, as a spouse, dare I say, even as a friend, is going to remain in your life for the long term. You must understand that. You must adapt. It's all connected, guys. How you date, how you handle your finances, how you handle your professional life, how you handle your personal life, it's all connected. Most successful people I know are not out there spending money frivolously, hooking up with chicks, or if you're a woman, hooking up with men, to be fair to both genders that watch this channel. The most people that I know want something stable and long-term, whether that's in business, whether that's in investing, whether that's in relationships, whether that's with a wife or a significant other. It's not a quick hit and leave, quick hit and get rich. All this stuff is connected. How you live your life says a lot about you, not only in the antiques and collectibles trade, not only in your professional life, but also in your personal and dating life too. More to come in another video on that. Now, this ties directly into my next question. That's why I left off with it. My question to you is, will the coins and currency market continue to be what it is in 20 to 50 years from now? The answer is enthusiastically yes. Again, all these markets are changing. The only constant in the antiques and collectibles trade is change. That being said, coins and currency are on the mature side of the antiques and collectibles trade. Anybody who has the collecting gene, as I call it, meaning collectors are born, they're not made, and they are interested in history, if they're interested in finance, if they're interested in economics, they will gravitate towards collecting historical items, coins, currency, edged weapons, firearms, historical documents. There have been numerous studies on this. That's why when you guys tell me that, Sean, you're wrong, collectibles are more important than antiques, it's actually the opposite. Collectibles are important, don't get me wrong. But one of the things that I really get upset is when I see like a comic book dealer or a video game dealer stating, well, this is the first appearance of Super Mario Brothers. It's historic. Yes, it's historic in video game terms. The first appearance of Superman is historic in comic book terms. It is not historic in the grand scheme of things overall. For instance, in 1776, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, The United States fought and won a Revolutionary War where we sought independence from Great Britain. That's taught in schools, colleges, everywhere, not only in the US, in the world. The people that learn that are drawn to history, they're going to want to collect the historic relics, the historic documents, the coins and currency from that era and up through the founding of this great nation. Or if you live in another country, Great Britain, United Kingdom right now, the coin market in the United Kingdom is on fire right now. Same thing with some of the Asian countries, whether we're talking about Japan or China or even Hong Kong. Those markets are very strong for coinage because the people that live there want to collect the history of their great lands as well. So that's what you have to understand when you compare collectibles to antiques. A lot of people hate me for saying this. I'm going to say it. Antiques are more cyclical. Collectibles are more linear. There's no guarantee that 60 to 70 years from now, people are going to be collecting Magic the Gathering cards. As much as I like the game, as much as I like the culture, I hope Magic the Gathering does get to that point. But it has a long way to go to get a hold on the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, that being said, I just want to clarify, coins and currency aren't going anywhere. Markets change, markets evolve. Right now, coins, at least in the US, are in a bull market due to the pandemic, what's going on with equities. We have the Fed pumping trillions of dollars in stimulus aid right now, propping up the stock market. It gives me heartburn. Even as a Keynesian economist, I still get heartburn when I see the Fed do that. I understand why they did it. Liquidity in the financial markets is very important. We can't allow all these businesses to go bankrupt, even though, I'm going to say it, some of them deserve to be. I'm looking at you, Occidental Petroleum. More on that in another video, sour subject. Last question. Sean, can you possibly look into setting up a Patreon account so really earnest people can subscribe at the low and mid tiers to ask detailed questions? I am looking into this, guys. I'll probably announce plans on that after I do the video that I'm going to premiere on antique and collectible consulting, how I handle antique and collectible consulting, how I got into the business, and the like. So those details will be coming soon. I want to make sure if I am going to do a Patreon, it has to be worth it on two ends. It has to be worth it to the people that are paying me, first of all, first and foremost. And it also has to be worth it for me to devote my time to it. So you kind of have to understand there's two halves of the same equation that have to go together for that to work. I don't want to take anybody's money and not provide a valid service. At the same point, if I set it up where people can ask me unlimited questions, I can't be on email all day answering questions every time somebody has an in-depth question about an antique or collectible or a category, or they're sending me pictures of trying to identify something. I can't spend all my time doing that. So I have to do it realistically, where if it's a bottom tier or it's a mid tier, this is how many questions you're allowed to ask. This is how long the question should be, or how much I can engage with you during that time. So that details on that will be coming soon. Thank you for all your support. Again, I hope this particular segment helped you. If it hasn't, please let me know in the comment section below, because that means I didn't do my job. Thanks, guys, and have a good night.